Happy Monday, everyone! Today we're sketching something softly glowing and serene, a magical moon jar. With just a few layers and cozy colors, this peaceful scene comes together quickly. Let's jump in. The first thing we're going to do is change that background color. So click into the background layer, scroll until you find the moon jar color palette, and we're going to select that very dark blue color. Now it will be hard to see the outline layer, so we're going to lighten it up a little bit. Add a new layer, click into that brush set, which again is linked in the description below. We're going to use the square blend brush and that lighter color from the color palette and just start adding in color to the bottom. Now we'll do the same with the upper portion with a slightly lighter blue than the background, just again to give a little bit more color, a little lighter color that we can see the outline. Now that we have the background done, let's go ahead and work on our moon. Click into that yellow color, select the circle brush, and let's go ahead and outline and fill in that moon. With it filled in, I'm going to alpha lock it so we can add some colors on top. I'm going to select a slightly lighter color, that circle blend brush. I'm going to add a little bit of lighter color to the left side of the moon. Now I'm going to go in with a darker color and start adding craters to the surface of my moon. You don't have to do this if you want to keep it just plain without the craters, but I like to add it in. So I'm just going to go in, do a little bit of circular shapes with a darker color to give that outline of the craters. Once I've added those craters, I'm going to blend them out a little bit so they're not so rough. So I'm going to grab that original moon yellow color that we used and just kind of go into the center of them to blend them out a little bit. it to what you like, I'm going to select that orange-ish color. I'm going to add a layer underneath of the moon, and we're going to still keep that circle blend brush and add a little bit of that glow behind the moon. So we want to try and blur it out a little bit more. So click into the smudge tool. You can keep that same brush or the circle blend brush and just smudge out a little bit of that glow, and it will make it blend a little bit better. Now I'm just kind of cleaning up the edges. I didn't like how wide that part was starting to get, so I'm just going to clean it up a little bit before moving on to the next step. Now what we'll do is go in with the yellow color, the darker of those two, and add a little bit more of that glow around the moon with that yellow color. I'm just going to keep blending out. I'm selecting colors in between the gradient just to blend it out even more. Once I get it to where I like it, we can move on to the jar. Once you have your moon complete, let's go ahead and add a new layer above the moon. This is going to be for our jar. So select that lighter color, keep it on the circle blend brush. That's going to make it appear like glass, like this glass jar. And we're just going to trace the outline of the jar. We're not going to fill it in this step. You'll see that I'm just doing light sketches. I'm not pushing too hard on the brush. I want it again to be very light, very airy, make it appear like glass. Right now, it's not looking quite like glass, but we will work on that. like this slightly darker blue color and add some more of this color in between the lighter colors we have there. Now I'm adding some of the blue down in the main jar area to give it more of that glass appearance. I am trying to lightly press so that it's not too dark against the moon. I want that moon to really pop, but I still want it to appear like glass. So I'm adding a little bit of that darker color down below as well. Now turn off the outline layer and start blending out this darker blue color. You want it to look more like glass. I don't want it so rough and stark like it is right now. So I'm going to blend it out to just make it look more like glass. I'm also going to use a little bit of that darker blue and add a little bit of depth to the rim of the jar. This is the reflection of the background coming up onto the jar, so I want to add a little bit of that in as well. Now I'm also using that dark color to do the rest of the jar down below as well. And you notice I keep toggling between turning the outline layer on and off. That's just so I can make sure that it's starting to look like the shape I want it to look like here. Now that I have the jar completed, I'm going to add some stars at the bottom of the jar here just to give it a little bit more glow, a little bit more of an interest to this piece. So I'm using the circle brush and that yellow color to add the stars down below. Now alpha lock that layer so that we can add some depth to it, and select that grayish color. We're going to add some shadows to this area as well. And I'm just lightly tapping here, and I'm pulling colors that are again in between these two shades of this gray and this yellow. And now I'm adding a little bit of orange just to give it a little bit more contrast and a little more glow. And as I'm working on this, I do want to bring this above the moon layer, which is what I just did there. Reason being, I want the moon to be kind of in the center of the jar, and these stars are kind of filling the whole bottom of the jar. So I want them to be a little bit in front of that moon. And now switch back to your circle brush. We're going to add some floating stars inside of this jar. What you'll want to do is uncheck that alpha lock on that layer, and then you can start adding those floating stars up into the jar. And we're still doing that same motion, just tapping into this area. You can put as many stars or as few stars as you would like. Sometimes you might want to remove objects from the scene to see where you're kind of working. So that's what I did here with the moon. It was kind of distracting from where I wanted to fill in the stars. So I just unchecked their layer so that I can work around that, and then I'll bring those back in. We're just going to keep going over this with those oranges, those yellows, just give it a lot more contrast in these stars. Now that we're done with this, we want it to really glow. So duplicate the layer by sliding left and clicking duplicate. And then we're going to do a Gaussian blur. That's going to give it this really beautiful glow. Let's go ahead and duplicate the moon as well and put a Gaussian blur on that. One thing to note that I did not do correctly here is that you want to make sure that that layer is not set to alpha lock. If it's set to alpha lock, it's not going to have that Gaussian blur because it's not going to blur out. It stays confined to the outline that you have. So make sure you turn that off. Now you can do that Gaussian blur, and it should really make this moon glow. And now select that circle blend brush, select a yellow color, and let's add some glow to the jar as well to make it really glowy in the scene. And remember, if you make a mistake or you want to undo one of the lines you just drawn, just click the screen with 2 fingers and it should undo that brush stroke for you. Now I'm going to pull a little bit more white into this just to make it a little bit more glowy. And now I'm just going to add a few stars outside the jar as if they're floating out of the jar and just over to the sides as well. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to duplicate this layer. We're going to do a Gaussian blur on the bottom layer. That's one thing I did not mention is the bottom layer is what you want to do the Gaussian blur on. The top layer you keep, that will make it defined but also blurred out. And now we'll work on the bottom layer, adding some highlights to there as well, some glowiness to that as well. And now I'm just going to start blending this out. I'm going to select colors that are in between that blue and yellow and just keep blending it out until I get it to look how I like. And I am adding a little bit of a shadow underneath the jar. There will be a little shadow, but it's still pretty glowy, so I don't want to go too dark here. And with that, we are done with our moon jar sketch. Thank you so much for sketching with me. Don't forget to grab the template, color palette, all of that from my Patreon. There's also a link to the brushes that I used in this video down below as well. I'd love to see your version, so make sure you tag it with #FrenchSavvySketches. See you in the next video.